Hello, it's Pastor Doug and my friend Greg back for another Pilgrims of Plunder. Today, we're going to talk about Halloween, and we're going to talk whether Christians should do it. What is this holiday and all sorts of fun stuff. Greg's already laughing.
Mm-hmm.
So I have confession to start with. Halloween has always been my favorite holiday.
Yep.
I cop to it. I know that's like for a fundamentalist, conservative, Bible believing Christian pastor that's heresy.
True.
Well, we can get into what the church's response to Halloween should be, but just on a personal confessional level, I love it. I love the kiddie part about it, not the adult part. It's become, I think, the second biggest adult party night, that's just kind of stupid.
Yep.
But it's the only holiday I know of that's communal, that you actually are dependent upon your neighbors. And it's, I think my little girl, when she was young, she'd dress up as a ladybug. We'd walk around the neighborhood and go candy begging. And my wife would give out candy at home. I think it's fun. Now, obviously, it has some dark aspects to it. And, the celebration of death, which are becoming more and more of an aspect of our culture. I need to talk about that. It does have pagan roots. It also has some Christian roots to it, at least in the high church tradition. But personally, just to give my opinion, obviously the church at best should ignore it. I'm not a huge fan of these Christian fall fests, the kind of fake Halloween. The church should completely ignore it, or the church should preach against it. Personally, I don't think it's an issue of church discipline,
Right.
in the direct sense. If you don't want to engage in Halloween practices, don't. If you do, keep it within the realms of Christian behavior, that's fine. I think it's a freedom issue. Whether it's wise to engage in Halloween, probably not, but we can get into it. But Let me ask my friend Greg, what do you think? Halloween?
Burn all the holidays.
I'm with that. I can go
Puritan.
Because do your kids go candy begging?
So we go candy begging. Yes, because again, for the same reasons that the tradition is fun and enjoyable.
America.
Right. And it's nice to walk around and collect all the type 2 diabetes fuel that you can find for free. And so, yes, I also, having, of course, from it, I look forward to Halloween. I mean, I have my strange little tradition. When I was a kid, eating candy, sitting on my living room floor after I had divided it all up into categories.
Absolutely.
And watching the marathons of Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nickelodeon. And so last year we did just that with my daughter because they have that show up on Amazon Prime. And so we just watched a few episodes of that show and ate candy. And it's a lot of fun. It is fun. Eating candy and watching TV is fun. Even if it's not Halloween. But we did go out a lot last year because down here, Halloween is bigger than Christmas.
Really? Wait, how can you have Halloween and not be in New England with fall leaves?
Right.
That seems wrong.
Look, people set up, like in November, December, they have all their signs out like, ooh, let it snow. We love like fake snowmen. I'm like,
you get snow in Tennessee?
Sometimes, yes, it does snow here. It lasts for about a day. But it's a huge thing. It is a huge thing down here. Halloween is massive down here. Everybody does it. And either, in the secular, overtly, it's Halloween, or every single church puts on a fall festival, trunk or treat, whatever, faux Halloween. My critique of that, and I laugh at it, and it seems very Roman Catholic, as far as let's incorporate all the local pagan traditions in order to make our religion the more universal. And that may be an unfair critique of the practice. I tend to be very unfair in my critiques of things, but it's one of those, it should be evaluated as, is it innocent fun, or are you really trying to co-opt a secular practice in order to try to Christianize it? If we don't do anything about it, and again, because it's kid focused, we want to entertain the neighborhood children at church. It's the VBS mentality.
So your church does something for?
We certainly do. Now there is a positive aspect of it in that it is a time that we also have chili for adults, free food, come in and eat,
Cool.
which I think is good.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think we do that around Thanksgiving, which seems somewhat odd because that's more of the, traditional holiday to open your doors and feed the neighborhood. I mean, so there is that. Yes, we do chili for the adults, candy for all the kids, and that is done on Halloween. And every church up and down every street does the same thing. The
Are there
bigger
anyone-
churches have like bounce houses. I mean, like there is a massive investment of resources into this holiday for the church down here.
Are there anyone in your church who like just doesn't participate? Just goes Puritan on it?
I don't know if I
That's
don't
interesting.
know if
'Cause we have a few in
so
our
it's not
church.
voiced.
Yeah, it's funny because we have a few in our church, and they're not, and they're not being bad. They're just like,
Right.
in our freedom, we don't do it.
Right.
And I'm like, rock on.
Yep.
Because I know we don't, our church doesn't do anything. And by the way, I don't mean to be too harsh. If your church wants to do it as an outrage, that's fine. I prefer to have the church do nothing on it or just be against it.
You can be harsh. I think we should entertain. We
Harsh,
should
harsh,
entertain. Is it
harsh.
innocent and fine and is a matter of church freedom?
To be
or-
fair,
you know?
we invite several members of the families of the church to come over to our house. We have a great neighborhood for trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Did you ever do that when you were here?
I did.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we went up there, but
Yeah,
it was like brutally cold that night.
because we're stout, real people that have real holidays.
I'm just saying it was
because
super
Halloween,
cold.
Thanksgiving, and Christmas should be in New England in the cold. But anyways,
Yep.
so that's just facts. But we
No,
have,
that is true. You're not wrong.
We invite a couple families of the church to come over. We go around candy bagging. My wife makes her famous soup that I forgot the name of it, some sort of cream soup with green vegetables in it, and the vegetables name broccoli soup. There it is.
Wow.
Doing well. Yep. I hate broccoli, but it's a great soup. And then for tradition, we watch the old Headless Horseman from Walt Disney.
Right.
Which I think is just Ichabod Crane, the whole thing. But there's some folks in our church that don't do it whatsoever, and I'm like, in your freedom, awesome.
Right.
That's fine. So I guess there's several things to tackle here. To deal with the darkness of the holiday, and it's getting increasingly dark. Much more celebrating violence and the macabre, as opposed to again dressing up as a ladybug or Batgirl and wandering around the streets.
Right.
Which is some of the costumes my little girl did. The other issue is pagan, and the other issue is Christianizing it.
Right.
So I guess let's start with the pagan one first, unless you have objections.
No.
So its origins is both pagan and Christian, because it goes back to the end of the Celtic New Year, Samhain, Samhain. I've heard different pronunciations of it, and it was the end of the year, and supposedly you would dress up, you dress up in costumes to scare away the evil spirits that would haunt the night, that one night before daylight, and so that's why you dressed up.
Awesome.
It wasn't a big holiday. It has, in the sense of candy bagging, it started the 19th century and early 20th century, but it's really post World War II where it took off, where you had the creation of suburbia, because suburbs really make the holiday work.
Right.
And it's now, I believe it's like the second biggest adult holiday outside of New Year's Eve. So it's a huge holiday for kids. It's a huge holiday for adults. It's also, though, tied Halloween, All Souls Eve. The Catholic and Anglican Church, they had too many saints, so they made November 1st the official saint day for all the saints, and if we've missed any,
they had too many saints.
Yeah, so it's all.
Boy, there's a problem right there.
Day. Well, they actually, Roman Catholics, they had to several centuries ago go through and they had to go through and edit out some of the saints that were fictitious. Like they had a couple giants and stuff from Ireland that were saints, and they had to get
awesome.
They had to lose them. But November 1st is All Saints Day, or All Souls Day. My apologies. And it's official day. It's official day for High Church. But before that was All Hallows Eve, the night before All Souls Day, All Saints Day, and so that became Halloween. But it really is a World War II creation, in the sense of its huge popularity.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so I get, so it's kind of pagan, it's kind of not, and
Yeah.
so I mean,
And I think along with it, again, it's the Christmas tree thing
yeah,
where there is a tradition now that has nothing to do with religion.
yeah.
And if you want to practice a tradition of a holiday, go ahead, because it is secular, not in the bad sense, but as it is a religious. However, I will take the same approach as the Christmas tree thing. Don't make it Christian, don't make it religion. Don't put a Christmas tree up in your church and have it a part of some
No.
service, because the Christmas tree, which is fine and all for you to have in your home because they're nice and pretty and it's a great tradition, has nothing to do with the worship of God. Don't put it there. So I think
So
I think
do you know any do you know any churches that have Christmas trees
do I
in
know
their
any churches?
sanctuary?
I could think of a couple. At least one. Now again, like, I'm not going to go around burning down church buildings that have Christmas trees or throwing stones at churches that have, candy for kids.
Your Puritanism is lacking.
I know. Well, and maybe that's just due to a lack of reinforcements. Because if one guy does it alone, then it's easy to get arrested. So, when there's a whole mob of you, you have a better chance of survival. So I do not advocate any of that. So
Right,
anybody,
right. Yep.
don't
YouTube, don't cancel us.
engage in vandalism or
Yep.
violence.
Yep.
Certainly not as the church. So I think that, again, as a matter of Christian liberty, cool. As a matter of an official church function, less cool, and very much against it being a Lord's Day, function.
Are you
So,
talking
like,
Christmas or Halloween?
well, I mean, any holiday, but Halloween, and nobody's going to make Halloween a part of the actual service like we do with
Oh, I know some
Christmas
liberal
trees.
churches that do that, but anyways.
Okay, well, then they're super
but they're
wrong.
already heretics to begin with.
But they're
So.
right. It's just more fuel for the fire.
Mm.
As they are suspended over the pit of hell by a thread, held by nothing but the arbitrary will of God. To quote Edwards, but the I have.
So
I don't know.
So I think for the
Yeah.
so if you're
Sure.
using it overtly as a pagan holiday, like
Right,
you
that's
go to
bad.
Salem, Massachusetts, that's bad.
Right, that's bad.
I don't think if you're going candy begging, you're engaging in a pagan practice.
I don't think so either.
I don't think so. That's not the violation. Again, in your
No.
conscience, in your Christian freedom,
Sure.
if you think it is, then don't do it.
Yep.
And you have that freedom.
Just like,
but-
don't have a Christmas tree
Yeah,
if you don't like its pagan origins.
So yeah, is it a overtly pagan holiday in the classical pagan Celtic sense? No, I don't think it is.
Not anymore.
It's
No.
opposed. Yeah, it used to be
Modern. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Modern Halloween is
But
not.
now
Right,
the
yes.
argument. I think the better argument against it is it too dark? Are you engaging in dark things? Are you engaging? And we talked about this in our Dungeons and Dragons episode. Is too much fantasy is dangerous and dark fantasy is bad.
Right.
So I think that's an aspect I think that I think is better argued. To how much do you engage? Can you read ghost stories? Can you read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which I love that book.
Can you watch Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah. And how much? Because I mean, you've definitely seen how the holiday decorations get more and more gruesome, more and more violent, more and more overt and demonic, or engaging in witchcraft, and obviously, that's not allowed. But where do you draw the line? Your child wants to dress up as a witch, and I'm like, yeah, we got to talk about that. Child wants to dress up as a demon. We got to talk about that.
Right.
But a dark elf ranger from World of Warcraft.
Well, the dark elves in World of Warcraft aren't evil. They're just,
I know.
you know. So
Okay, fine. Blood elf.
if it were the blood elves are evil, or the drow from D&D,
Right.
those are evil elves.
But so I think that would be more my concern. That especially with kids, how much do you indulge that?
Right.
And I so thoughts about that. Yeah, I mean, do you put restrictions in your on your kids' costumes?
Oh yes, of course. And we try to carry those same restrictions just sort of elsewhere, because again, like you had mentioned, the witch thing, and the traditional witches have fallen out of favor. They've been replaced universally with Harry Potter characters,
Yeah,
and so that is a different. It's the same evil, but it's now proper in English, and so everybody thinks it's okay. So there are yeah, that's right. The English culture is a Trojan horse for witchcraft. Um, the We put restrictions on it. Thus far, our children, our two kids have been content to be, Pokemon and I think Grogu. So,
Grogu. I don't know what Grogu is.
oh, don't give me that.
I'm dead serious. What's Grogu?
Baby Yoda?
Oh, it's Baby Yoda. Use the real
No,
name.
excommunicado. So we're done. We're done. That's it. So Grogu, so all of that. Nothing ever like super dark. I don't much care for that. But I mean, even you bringing it up with the gruesome thing, because I being a huge fan of like the zombie apocalypse genre. I have no problem with zombies, but that is something that is, I mean, quite grotesque, especially depending
It's
on
unclean by Old
how
Testament
far you
standards.
want to.
Yeah.
Right. No, there are a lot of problems with the whole zombie thing, quite honestly. Portraying one on Halloween. I mean, I don't dress up for anything anyway, so but like I guess I wouldn't let my kids be zombies, which is weird because I think I would find that hilarious. And I would probably approve of that on a personal level, but maybe I shouldn't.
When Rebecca was little,
Huh.
we joke around that I should dress up as Bert and my wife should dress up as Ernie. And if you know our personalities,
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that works.
100%.
Yep.
And our little girl could be the rubber ducky.
Yep. That's cute.
So
I don't
anyway,
have. I don't know if I have like if there's anything that would work for us. So, I don't know. We should dress John up as John Calvin.
there we go.
Get him a beard.
Beard?
And the
That'd be
hat.
Luther. Oh, a beard. I thought you had a beer. I'm like, that'd be
No,
Luther.
get him a beard. Hey, give him a
Young for
beard.
beer
He'll be
also,
Luther.
but,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I mean we've done stuff in the with the kids, but it's always very, very G rated.
Yeah.
And nothing of the occult. So,
Well, I mean, and how to view it scripturally, because you could argue, is this an idol meat thing? I mean, it's probably, I'll be blunt, it's probably wiser not to get involved in it.
right.
With also, but I mean, there's always that danger of, this is a fine balance with parenting, that if you get way too strict on your kids, especially outside of the direct commandments of the law of God, is there with the Pharisaism? However, our culture is far more too permissive, where
Yes.
that's the far bigger danger. But do you chalk it up under idol meat, or I mean, think John 3:19. Sorry, this is the judgment: the light has come into the world, but men love the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil.
Right.
There is, and I'll be honest, growing up as a kid, and I went to a very liberal church, a very liberal UCC church. It really wasn't a Christian, and I mean, I loved ghost stories. I love tales of the supernatural and monsters and things like that. Never liked the grotesque, the ultra violent stuff.
Yeah,
that never interested me.
Yep.
But like, again, like ghost stories, there's something fun about a good ghost story. And should you like never do that?
Yeah.
I don't
know on that. I never gave that much thought. I mean,
is it wrong? I mean, we'll go with a simple one, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. No, in one sense, I love that as a ghost story. because you don't know if it's true or fake at the end, which to me is a good ghost story would be. I think
Right.
generally you're supposed to read it that it was Brom Bones who was the horseman and not a real demon, a Hessian demon coming
Right.
back to stalk the valley looking for a head to chop. I can't do Bing Crosby. I'm tempted, but I won't do that. Yeah, right. Such a great song. So yeah, so is that wrong? Is to tell a ghost story. I mean, again, I suppose, are you implying ghosts are real? That would
Right. Right.
now
This.
that would be problematic. Are you just
Huh.
doing it as a simple? I mean, are you telling something simple entertainment? Like, is even Casper the Ghost wrong? Because is that a gateway drug to something far more dangerous?
Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Oh, I hated that show as a kid. It was so
Not a
boring.
fan either.
Yeah.
Um.
Now the Horseman. Oh, the
Right.
Horseman, the Disney animated one. Oh, that was amazing as a little kid. I was
Right.
like, yay. But
I
is
mean,
that a
in
ghost?
ghost stories, because it gets into that, and I think we talked about it maybe in a video. I know that we've sort of discussed it elsewhere. About entertainment and amusement, about fiction in general.
It was a D&D video.
Right. And so whereas arguably there's nothing inherently wrong with fiction. If so, then you'd have to be like, well, then there goes Pilgrim's Progress and Lion the Witch and Wardrobe. So you get rid of those because they're fictional. And so we're not saying that all fiction is evil. But then, is fiction about ghosts evil? And yes, I suppose your point being, do you imply that ghosts exist? Well, you shouldn't. Ghost stories are built around that. Should we perpetuate ghost stories? I think it's one of those things. It's an easily accessible form of fear and adrenaline, right? It's cheaper than jumping out of a plane. And it's a way to sit around and scare yourself and others. And a lot of people enjoy that sort of a thing. There's somewhat of a, there is an excitement to fear, to that adrenaline, which is also why, scary movies exist and are popular.
Absolutely.
Because of that. And why Stephen King exists, because there is that, there's that the creepy. Now, of course, a lot of Stephen King goes way too far, but to that mentality. And so, is it wrong to scare people?
Is it wrong at all to indulge that strange interest?
Right. And I think that's
for instance, like I remember traveling in England. Almost all the old castle hotels I'd stay in, or all the old hotels or taverns, had their own little ghost story, and they'd tell you the ghost story. Yep. And there was something very quaint and very cool about it. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I actually think there was a ghost haunting this old tavern. No, but and that it made for a fun story. And so should you indulge that at all?
I don't know. That's interesting.
I'm not sure if a Christian. There's two levels, I guess. There's one where you're overtly doing it.
Okay.
It's like, there's a ghost story about the church, we attend or something. That would be problematic. The other thing is, there's not just, should you at all passively be part of it? I mean, you again, you go to this old castle and they tell you a ghost story. I'm like, okay, that's kind of fun.
Right.
Or again, back to our example, is it wrong to, have your kid dress up as a ghost because, money's tight, so you put a bed sheet over his
bed sheet. There you go. Right.
Cut out 2 holes and
cheapest costume ever.
So is that wrong? Like I said, I definitely could, again, repeating myself, I could engage. I could see it may not be the wisest thing. I don't think it's directly. I can't think it's a direct violation of God's law. I know, like with Santa Claus, spoiler alert, like how do you handle Santa Claus? I know, like we told Rebecca from the get-go, there was no Santa Claus.
Same.
But we also when we put up pictures of Santa, a few in the house, sure. I know, like I grew up, we used to we used to get presents from quote Santa, and they were wrapped in white,
Right.
and those were directly from Santa Claus.
Hmm.
And if you want to do that as a tradition, we did it. That's fine. But we told Rebecca from the get-go there is no Santa Claus,
Right. We did the same.
and don't ruin it for other kids. That's up to their parents. Show respect for that parental authority. But
That one we were a little bit, I don't know, that one was debatable for our household. I equated it as, if telling somebody that Santa is real is effectively lying to your children and creating a false god, then, and we say, oh, don't correct them, then how am I going to say, be sure that if the topic of God comes up, speak the truth, even if they're pagan?
well, our concern,
I'm like, so it's okay to correct someone for overt paganism and atheism, but subtle paganism and atheism, no, let them have their fun.
our bigger concern, not necessarily for our daughter, but just in general, that they get overtly aggressive about it. And
Oh
and,
yeah,
and,
don't run up
they,
and start beating up kids
yeah,
about Santa.
yeah.
But if it comes, I don't know.
So that was more of our concern.
I know I was never like, it happened. I think Sarah had mentioned it, and everyone was like aghast. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to correct her for saying there's no such thing as Santa in public with other kids around. There's no such thing as Santa. I'm like, I wouldn't correct her if she said, there's no such thing as Thor. I'm like, why would I tell my daughter to not proclaim the truth? Again, don't run up to random children and say, ha
And
ha,
that's
Santa
what we
doesn't
were concerned
exist.
about.
Right.
Yeah, because if
Don't be a
someone
bully.
asked her point blank, "Do you believe in Santa
Sure.
Claus?" Like, "Oh no, I don't."
Well, she
Maybe
was like adults would talk to her and be like, so what is Santa bringing you this year? And she's like, Santa's not real. I'm like, good girl. Yes, we don't and we were also raised. I was raised, in our household, we weren't raised to believe in Santa, but also given that same restraint of don't go ruining it for the rest of the kids. I guess, let everybody live in their delusion. So that's how that went. But and that was because my mother was raised to believe Santa was real.
Well,
And then another kid told her that he wasn't, and she was just crushed. And so
well,
she determined never to do that to us.
my mother-in-law did that. She was told Santa existed, and she went to the bat saying my parents would never lie to me.
Right?
They would, and she would, because like if my parents said Santa real, they would never lie.
Right.
And it really crushed her when
Yep.
the parents had to say, "Yeah, no, he really doesn't exist."
Right.
So,
But anyway, enough about Santa.
yeah.
Also, no, but even because one of the things that I was thinking about on the topic of that.
We have to do the bridge though. If you change Santa around, what name do you get?
Satan.
And now we're back to Halloween.
Right. Actually, mine, I was going to take the German route with the Krampus. So the Germans, who are the authors of all things macabre and evil as far as what you tell children, they don't have Santa. They have some weird, creepy demon who doesn't give you coal, but he kills you, or something horrible.
Well, there's the dwarf with a switch.
Yeah,
that would go.
I don't know. The Germans, so Germans are creepy, and a lot of fairy tales, all the creepy ones come from Germany. Thanks, Germany. And so, my questioning also on that, again, like in a lot of the the dark fairy tales, which was almost all of them in their original form, leading into scary stories. Because I mean, again, like look at Hansel and Gretel. That is a horrible, terrifying story. And my understanding and my literary history is awful. So I will speak purely from ignorance. A lot of these things, also kind of like the boogeyman, exist as a way for parents to scare their children into obeying something. Don't do whatever because something evil will eat you. And you have that also as a matter of a lot of, folklore comes about from, I'll point it out, sadistic parenting. And through time, sure, we retained and changed a lot of that stuff. But that idea that scary things exist so that parents can scare their kids into obeying, I think is horrible. Don't go in the basement, the boogeyman will eat you. Don't cross your eyes, they'll get stuck that way. you know, like that sort of stuff is just, yeah, I care for none of it. So I mean, again, not to I don't know, is the origin of scary stories and fairy tales, um should we factor that in as to whether or not we engage in it? Because even to go with simple fiction, so like look at Pilgrim's Progress. It's fictional, it's analogous, of course, but it is fiction with a righteous purpose, if you will, which is very different than fiction that exists for ungodly and unrighteous purposes. And so, should we be less permissive around perhaps even the more tame or tempered present forms of things which were anything but? Does that matter? Have we made it okay? Are ghosts okay now because they're cute?
We're dealing
altogether?
we're dealing with a big meta issue, which we need a whole episode on. It's how Catholic or how Puritan the church should be,
right?
And how much do you allow parishioners freedom, and realize that's part of what it is to be in the visible church,
right?
Or to what extent should we push the church to be made as pure as possible and invisible? Let me argue a verse, that's against Halloween.
Sure.
Ephesians 5:11. Do not participate in the unfruitful deeds of darkness, but instead even expose them. Now, what are the deeds of darkness here? Because when you read verses 8 through about 13 or so, it's all about light and darkness. And we are children of light, and we are in godliness and righteousness and truth. And we're supposed to expose the darkness. You put it in context, though, the darkness is sexual impurity, immorality, greed, filthy and silly talk, coarse jesting, again, sexual immorality, being covetous, being an idolater. Those things bring the wrath of God.
Right.
So obviously, to engage in and even in the hint of anything that's pagan worship would be inappropriate.
Right.
Back to the thing at hand, dressing up. I'll run with it. Dressing up as a ghost and going candy begging, then coming back and watching the Headless Horseman.
Right.
Is that wrong?
Right. Is that engaging in pagan worship?
Because obviously, for a more Catholic, and I mean in the small C sense, universal church, the answer is no. I mean, you're not doing. There's nothing that's overtly a violation of the law of God that I can think of in those things.
Right.
A direct violation. I can't think of one. Now, so therefore, it's okay in your Christian freedom. Now, from a Puritan point of view, and I love me my Puritans, you're flirting with stuff, and that's the danger.
Right.
Why are you even flirting with anything that has a hint of darkness to it? Right. Just flee from it. So it's that Catholic Puritan debate. Because I mean, again, maybe I'm wrong. I cannot think of a direct commandment. I'll go with what I do. Daughter dresses up as a ladybug. We wander around the houses, get our candy, come home, eat soup, and watch the Headless Horseman.
Right.
And we talk about it. I think, who wrote that? Washington Irving. I think he clearly implies the Horseman's not real.
Right.
Just because if you read the book, the Horseman at the end throws his head at Ichabod, and the next day they find a smashed pumpkin.
Right.
And so we've had some good conversations about that. And, and again, Bill Crosby's song is fun. I can't think of any law I'm directly violating. But again, the Puritan response is, why are you being so minimalistic?
Right. Right. No, yes. And on that, it is one of those things. It is thoroughly unnecessary, the practice, even in a very tame form. It's not something that has anything to do with the Christian faith, or, and therefore, why are you engaging in it? anyway. Oh, because it's fun or because it's entertaining, but again, it's not just fun entertainment. It is a derivative of, or something which perhaps it is more wise from which to flee. And also, I don't know how much bearing or relevance it has on the conversation, but I was just kind of thinking, a lot of the things, there is also, if you will, that danger of making out to be pure fiction certain things that are not fictional.
Mhm.
Witchcraft is a legit sin, and it is
Oh, yeah.
evil, and it is a thing.
Suffer not a
with
witch to live. Yeah.
right, communing with spirits, that is straight up in scripture and expressly forbidden all throughout.
Right.
Ghosts in the modern sense don't exist, but there are demons,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
do exist. They are evil and
Yeah.
shouldn't be made out to be cute and cuddly or fun or whatever.
Sure.
Same with the devil. I mean, and then you have, and again, I guess just in the general sense, I mean, like if you dress up as an angel, there's also still problems with that. You have people who dress up as Jesus, and there are definitely problems with that. I mean, there are a lot of things where you're making, it's all fun, and maybe there's maybe some things shouldn't be fun.
But see, that's yeah,
which is more of a Puritan
but
approach.
you're straying.
But
I'm arguing
I
both
know.
sides here because
Sure.
once you start straying more into the dark stuff, it's easy.
No, of course.
Your kid
right.
wants to dress up as Satan. It's like
no.
No,
No, I know.
We're gonna put
I know.
pictures of Satan around our house.
Ladybugs aren't
No.
evil. Pikachu isn't evil. I get, well, some might think Pikachu's evil,
but so again, but it's back to that unwise thing.
Yeah.
And again, I'm trying to pick on myself here because
Right.
I mean, I was describing the most minimalistic.
Yep.
Well, let me ask. Well, I'm just curious on your church's those Tennessee fall festival
festivals.
How could people in Tennessee call something a fall festival?
We have fall. It lasts like 3 days.
Do you actually, do your trees actually change color?
Oh, we have tons of deciduous forests here. Yes, the colors
do change color.
Nice. Oh, absolutely.
Different shades of green.
Where they go from green to falling off. Now, so we do. In fact, Susie and I are going to be going down to Anakeesta down in November. And the foliage down there is very nice.
Compared to Vermont, New Hampshire, or
it is no. It's beautiful if you're from the South, and it is. There is, but
sorry.
No. But like the trees change differently here, and the types of trees. So you'll have like one kind of tree that'll change first, and so there'll be just like a bunch of red trees, and everything else is green. And then suddenly those will all be gone, and they'll be kind of yellows. Unlike up north, where everything changes all at once into, brilliantly diverse colors. Yeah. No, you do not have that down here.
Well, so enough regionalism, but anyway,
regionalism.
Anyway, no, but my question is, do your kids at the church, when they come to church, do they dress up in costumes?
Do kids dress up in costumes for the church? Boy, I can't even remember. Yes. So yes, a lot of the festivities, all of the kids are dressed up for the festivities.
So no, you invite people in from the community, right?
Yes.
So if a kid shows up dressed up as Satan, what do you do?
I don't know. It hasn't happened, to my knowledge. Okay. I have no idea.
Or dressed up as a Yankee.
I have zero. I have no. I have.
You don't go to these
nothing
things?
To that answer.
Do you take your kids to this?
Oh, do we take? Oh, last year we hit up a bunch of the places. This year we're not gonna, because nobody needs that kind of that much candy. No. Oh man, people down here, and I mean, like, they don't chintz out. Like, nobody's serving out fun-sized anything. You're getting like full Butterfinger bars. I mean, like, people down here, man, they go all out.
But anyway, there was one person in our neighborhood who'd give out tubes of toothpaste. just awesome. But anyway,
It's like the guy
seriously.
who gives out apples. Be like, no, you know what? We're gonna skip your house.
Yeah. Anyway, no, I'm down with the toothpaste. I think it's just awesome. The little
The little, it's like going to the dentist. You get the bag of the toothpaste and the little sample dental floss and a new
So
toothbrush.
he might have been a dentist. I never thought of it. But anyways, so all right, so that's interesting. So obviously for those churches, showing up in costume is okay.
Yes.
And so
everybody does it.
yeah, so
and it is communal, so it's not just the church that's there. It's not just like, all the kids. I mean, now granted, down here everybody's quote Christian anyway, because it's cultural. We have regional Christianity, so everybody down here is Christian. But the I didn't pay attention to people's costumes like at all. I'm sure there were like some skeletons, and because those are easy costumes as well, but I didn't really notice. I'll have to pay attention this year. That's an interesting question as well. Do you let the devil in?
No, and again, I'm not trying to, if church want to do that as an outreach or a fellowship for their kids, I'm not saying they can't do it. Personally, I just prefer the church just ignore it.
Right.
And leave it up to the parents. I think I'm still in the same place where I am at the beginning of the video. If you want, in your Christian freedom, if you want to engage it as a kid holiday for candy bagging, make sure you put some parameters to the kids. Tell your children the parameters. If you're going to watch, a G-rated ghost story, explain it to them.
Right.
I don't think you sin if you do that. Maybe, you might be a Martha here. Always back to that standard. If you don't want to do it, then by all means explain it to your kids, and maybe do something else that night and make it fun. Do something else, I don't know, whatever.
I don't know. Should you do anything though? Play D&D instead, right? That's much better. Go be like, we're gonna be paladins and kill all the ghosts.
I'm all for that. But I do think when you read Ephesians 5:11, that also should haunt you a little.
No.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
That was intentional. Witty.
No, I think though, if you're not going to do anything, if you're not going to do Halloween, don't do anything at all. Because I think one of I think the basis of churches doing Halloween is because, our kids can't engage like all the other kids, so
it's
we should
Hanukkah.
Christianize
Come on.
it. What about Hanukkah?
Well, yeah. Why Hanukkah?
Why Hanukkah's the thing? Oh, because all the Christian kids had the fun holiday.
Yeah. No, dead serious. I had Jewish friends, and they're like,
no,
they all admitted Hanukkah was a minor holiday, but they were like,
right. No, Hanukkah is massive over in the States.
That's an interesting parenting thing, because I know for myself, if we decided Halloween's Eve or we're not doing it, knowing us, we would do something else.
You'd
just
make
as
a new
family.
Halloween.
It could just be game night or something.
Neo Halloween, right?
Yeah, and not call it. We wouldn't call it a fall festival night or something. We're just like, the pagans are out candy bagging, but you know what? We're gonna have game night. Let's just have some fun.
Right.
But yeah.
But I mean, again, the temptation is there. It's like, well, everybody else is having fun. We should have fun too, but not their fun. We're gonna make it our fun. So it's like, well, I mean, at that point, but when you get enough people doing that, you start doing it together, and now you have fall festivals. Right. So, I mean,
and they're dressing up in Halloween costumes,
right?
And they're getting candy.
Gee, it's almost like we've gone backwards. Mm-hmm. So, there is that thing. I'm like, if you're gonna be a Puritan, go be a Puritan. Look, if you need to find some people on Halloween who aren't celebrating, find some Jehovah's Witnesses and go hang out with them. They hate holidays too.
Yeah, and I guess I'm arguing for a much more Catholic small C approach than a Puritan approach, and maybe that's unwise.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, I may not have strong conviction, and that may be bad, because one of the things that I really appreciate that Doug Wilson had mentioned once, especially about the burden of being the head of a household, is that you ought to be very strict in what righteousness is, because when you are not, you will permit all manner of things, to that. And so identifying the areas where we as men are
Mhm.
personally weak in our righteousness and our piety, is critical, because if we're okay with it personally, we permit it in our house.
Sure, sure, sure.
And it really is. And you know, because I'm building off of that, because you and I are in the same boat right now. What's the big deal? And we might be wrong.
Yeah.
And we might be permitting things that you really shouldn't permit in your house. And it seems like such a stupid thing, and even you sort of like autocorrect of, well, don't go too crazy, don't be a Puritan, it's not really a bad thing, and what are you going to do instead? And I'd like to point out, it's like, I don't know, maybe have an evening devotion, you know, which you
Sure,
should be
sure.
having every night anyway. But so I
What?
totally something else that I just remembered and I'm going to write down. It has nothing to do with this video, but it was a topic
Write
I
it
wanted
down.
to
Write it
talk to you
down. Yeah.
about. I'm writing it down.
I always take
Um,
notes.
but anyway, I'm like, this has nothing to do with this conversation. No, so that was my point. We could be wrong, and we could just be surrounded with other people who are wrong, and all of us have just agreed that it's okay, and it might not be okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
No. So you take the Puritan approach.
I don't know.
No, because my
Oh,
retort
are
to
we
that,
assigning this?
and
Okay,
by the way, there's wisdom to that. I'm not saying that that's wrong.
sure.
And what you do, I think at the very least, have it thought out. So if you're
Right.
going to do Halloween, don't think, oh, I really liked it as a kid, therefore it's okay.
Right.
Everyone's doing it, that's okay. It's like, no, think this out by the word of God. And if you're going to do it with intention, and do it with the correct parameters and the correct education. Because
Yes.
I don't know what
Okay.
Wilson's stance on Halloween is, by the way.
Oh, no. I don't. Oh,
Yeah,
it wasn't. It had nothing to do
yeah.
with how. It was something
But
else. It was
well,
the
no,
general
it's true.
wisdom.
Like for instance,
Okay.
like I know, like early on, like when my daughter was a little girl, you know, I said, you know, her swimsuits must be modest, even at the
Right.
youngest age,
Right.
because it's cute. It's like a little 5-year-old girl in a bikini. And I'm like, well, if she can wear a bikini at 5, she
She's
can wear
gonna
one
keep
at
wearing it.
25 or 15. And I'm
Right.
like, no.
And in this day and age, 5-year-olds in bikinis is also really bad.
Yeah, no, but it's, oh, but that's a whole other episode.
I know. Not to
Having your
derail
daughter
onto
be
that, but
modest in this
yes,
day and
yes.
age that's a whole battle.
Yeah.
But you do it intentionally. And I'm back to I guess I'm advocating it's okay to do Halloween in a minimalistic way, because I can't think of a direct violation of God's law.
Yes.
Is it unwise?
Maybe.
I mean, maybe. I mean, would it be better to, you know, spend the day that night in prayer and reading scripture? Sure.
Sure, but it would be
that
better to
applies
do
to
that.
everything. And there is a place for fun. Now, again,
Right.
our culture is way too much into that. Again, I loved in our Halloween episode where we came up with those two basic things: watch out about fantasy, and watch
Right.
out about too much leisure. And I think that was a good answer.
Yeah.
So I guess then that's my pastoral advice on
Same
this one.
applies. Yeah.
Think it out. I mean, if you're going to do it, think it out, and tell your kids what you're doing,
Right.
and explain to the things. It's like, look, yeah, I mean, the other kid has a really cool demon costume, but you know, demons really exist. We don't do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, we're just gonna go in the neighborhoods, knock on the door, and get some candy.
Right.
And
I think those are two. Though you've made one point, there are 2 points that you've made, as far as I'm concerned, which are phenomenal, and I want to build on both. So yes, the being thoughtful about it. Again, don't do it because it's tradition, and don't not do it just to not be that way.
Yeah.
You know, and I think of that Lutheran satire video about reformational piggybackers.
Sure.
And there's the discourse between Luther and Zwingli, and Zwingli's like, oh yeah, we're gonna stop doing this because the Catholics do it. And Luther's like, don't, you know, the Reformation is to get God's word right, not to just be as un-Catholic as possible.
Right,
and so,
right.
you know, I appreciate that. That is a very wise mentality. Know why you're doing it, have a reason, and have, you know, scripture to back it. Which is, I think, critical. The other thing, not necessarily related to Halloween, but because you had made that point, and I thought that it was just quite wonderful little footnote of something, in explaining it to your children. And that is wonderful wisdom, especially for people like me, who default to more of a military drill sergeant sort of a mentality in life, the, strict discipline. And there's a place for strict discipline. But as I was reading today, as well, and there was the Puritan quote book that I have, a contrast between, with God as a, God as a father versus the master of a house, and how Christ says that you are not servants, because servants do not know, the Father's will. You know the will of God because you are sons. And it was that contrast of that fathers explain and teach their children. They reveal their will, why they're doing it, to their children, as opposed to just assigning a task and a responsibility as you would to a servant. You don't need to know why, you just need to do it. And which is a very militaristic mentality.
Unlike the Passover.
It works, right, exactly. And it works really well in the military. However, scripture, and again, even with the Passover, so that when your children see why you are doing this, they'll ask and you can teach them. The notion that we teach our children, not just command our children to obey, but we teach them why, is critical. Not only is that loving and very intimate and very much intimates God to our children, but it's also, again, there are a wealth of benefits to that, but that is very necessary for me, because again, it's easier for me to be a drill sergeant than a father in a lot of things, especially when your son just keeps asking why.
Because that's why
there's
I'm your father.
There is a time.
Oh, there's a time for that.
And a place.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
To just,
it's like,
but
do you even explain that? It's like we told our little girl. It's like, you need to first obey. You go to touch the hot stove, and I say stop.
Oh, right, stop.
Yeah,
stop.
and you explain that as a situation.
Yes,
it's like,
this is why.
Then you can ask why, but you first obey, because we're the parents and we know better, and God has put us in authority. But then there is a place to ask the questions and ask why, and to have that, develop that relationship. Because when they get older, and now my little girl's in college, you want them to come as adults and tell you things that sometimes are hard to hear.
Right.
And you're allowed to correct, but let's say they're wrestling with the faith.
Yep.
And you just want to say, no, just to believe. And it's like, okay, no. Let's get this out. I want to talk about this.
Yep.
And to build up that relationship over the years, absolutely.
We do. Yeah.
I remember watching Disney movies, same thing, fantasy and Too Much Leisure.
Right.
I early on, every time they said, believe in yourself, I'd stop and say, let's talk about that one.
Right.
Not a lot, but it's like,
right.
Do you understand how dumb that is? And it got to the point when she was early on, she would catch it.
Yep.
Because believing in yourself is idiotic because you want to believe in Christ.
Right. Exactly.
So, but
no, and that's very good.
No, but another thought, I realized we're almost straying into that Lutheran Reformed debate between the regulative principle and the normative principle, which is granted about worship, but we're kind of applying it to the life. Because the regulative principle, that good Puritan principle, is if it's not directly commanded in Scripture, it's forbidden.
Right.
And the normative principle is if it's not forbidden, it's allowed.
Right.
And that balance of those two, because I think the regulative principle is definitely the more hardcore, narrow way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a goodness to that, but it also can have the whiff of Pharisaism.
Yes, it can.
And to have that balance. Yeah. And the normative principle, there's a charity to it, but can lead to that broad road.
Right.
And that wonderful balance. And we're always back to this. We have to do a whole episode on this one.
Right.
That balance between holiness and charity.
Right.
And I get maybe it's Halloween's part of that. How zealous you are for the application of law and holiness, and how much do you have some charity for your kids? Like, you know what, you want to dress up as Ladybug and go candy begging, we're gonna do it.
Yep. I feel that and on the regulative versus normative, one of the things that you had made mention about that, which really made me appreciate more the Lutheran over the Puritan, is if you as the individual start worshiping the sacrament, that's on you.
Yeah.
But you should, sacrament's a bad one because you don't get rid of it. If you start worshiping high church liturgy, if you make high church liturgy an idol, that's your fault.
Yeah.
High church liturgy, when done right, is good, and therefore keep it in church. Keep it as a part of the worship service. If you go Roman Catholic on it, if you become a papist and you make the liturgy holy and magical, that's your fault. That's not the fault of the Lutheran Church.
Yeah.
And I thought, because paraphrasing that conversation that we had, but I thought that was a very Lutheran defense for it. And I thought it was very beautiful, because what you end up with in the opposite is you do away with all of the things out of fear that someone somewhere might make it into an idol. And you end up tearing up the wheat along with the tares.
Yeah.
You try to go too Puritan and you start to destroy things that were good traditions. They weren't commanded, but they're actually not bad. And so, yes, there are certain things I'm fine with doing away with fully, statues and stained glass imagery and whatnot. I'm like, I'm fine if you want to get rid of that, rock on. Calvin didn't have a very high view of that either. But again, I think it was more so, and as I've been reading The Necessity of the Reformation of the Church, Calvin's criticisms are not on the liturgy.
No,
it's on what people are doing to it and with it, and what they're neglecting because of it. So, Calvin wasn't a Puritan. Calvin was concerned with the right worship of God. In doing so, you get rid of things that shouldn't be. There are definitely traditions that shouldn't be there at all. I fully support that, but you don't get rid of them just because they're not commanded. You get rid of them because they are heresy, or because they're stupid, like modern music and rock bands. Those are dumb. Get rid of them. So contemporary worship services, burn it to the ground and build something better on the ashes.
Right. So to give a verse on the other side, 1 Peter 2:16, act as freemen. Do not use your freedom as a covering for evil.
Amen.
But use it as bond slaves of God.
Right.
Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. So, I mean, to me, for the more normative principle approach to Halloween, which I think I'm not arguing for, you have freedom, but don't use it as a covering for evil. So if you're using this to indulge something dark,
right?
Yeah, now start being afraid and maybe get a little more Puritan.
Yep.
If you're doing it for appropriate reasons, it's family, it's neighborhood, gonna get some candy, in moderation, and dressing up in costumes.
Yeah, that's the hard one right there.
Well, my problem's not candy. My problem's carbohydrates, which I know is candy sugar, but it's bread. But anyway,
I'm bad with sugar.
Yeah,
I have blood sugar issues. Halloween
myself.
is a bad night.
Candy's not my problem. It's the golden brown and delicious. But anyways,
right.
Enough for personal confession. But to use. So again, it's that self-examination, and especially with the head of household, why you're doing it, instruct it, and and explain also the positive. Again, I'm a good New Englander. We hardly ever talk to our neighbors unless they're in need, because New England, we're the cold,
the superior culture.
Absolutely. But I love it that it's a low pressure communal holiday. It's the only holiday where I'm depending on my neighbors to celebrate. And there's something kind of fun about that.
Yeah.
So, you explain it to your kids, do it for the right reasons, have fun in your freedom. If you don't want to do it, by all means. But, combining that 1 Peter 2 text with that Ephesians 5 text, finding that balance. So.
Right. No, that is a fantastic conclusion. Yes. Not to use our liberty as a covering for evil. Right. Yep. No, I think that sums it up very, very well.
Should we drop the mic here?
Yeah, no, it was funny because as you were saying it, I'm like, boy, I'm glad you didn't start with this, because then the whole episode would have been pointless. But I think
for those who watch all the episodes, really just watch like the last 10 minutes.
No, really, it is. All of our episodes could just be the last 5 to 10 minutes.
The first 15 minutes are just like us, like trying to figure out what we're talking about, and we're wandering.
I know. It's like the Cliff's notes of our
Well, I did
episode.
that once. I did that for the Dungeons and Dragons one.
I know you cut the end, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that was it. That was everything. However, but that's my critique, like reading Augustine. He'll go on for like 70 chapters, and then like the conclusion is this most beautiful thing, but you realize it wouldn't have been as impactful had you not suffered through the rest of it. So we are Augustinians, suffer. But no, I think that is a very good point. And yes, it is a matter of Christian liberty as the individual, and I think even as a congregation, if it is customary to have a harvest festival, fine, rock on.
My vote's no, but sure, you have freedom.
Right, because again, unless you can bring charge of scripture against it, I'm not going to be like, look, my personal preference is this, and therefore you're wrong.
Exactly.
No, that's something that should be corrected. That behavior is actually a violation of scripture.
That is Pharisaism.
Right.
Yeah.
Your holiness is not the standard for everyone else's behavior around you.
Your holiness based upon a tradition is not
right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, if your church wants to do it, cool. If your church doesn't want to do it, cool. I like my neighbors even outside of Halloween. I like the Southern hospitality.
Once a year, I come out. Yeah, I come out at night.
I like Southern hospitality outside of Halloween.
For one night a year, the New Englanders come out and talk to their neighbors. I kind of like that.
Yes, it is. It is. New England turns into a normal community one day of the year. Other than that, no. So yes, no, I think that's a fantastic point. And it is a matter of liberty to do, but know why you're doing it or why you're not doing it. I think that's critical.
And instruct your children why.
Yes, and teach the reasons why.
Yeah.
Yes, that is very that is very good. All the wisdom from you.
No, cut that end out.
No, too bad. I want you to now have a Catholic virtual background with like the big glowy halo thing. Saint Douglas Aldrich.
Oh no.
No, but those are very good points. And so my concluding point is to reiterate your points. And I will stand on the shoulders of giants as per my usual. And that's about that.
Stop that. So we had to find an episode where we totally disagree, but I thought I do like the combining of 1 Peter 2 with Ephesians 5, and I'm good. I think this is a good place to end.
Yeah, I'm good too. That's that.
So thank you for joining.
Yes,
Pilgrims of Plunder. That's our name. Yep, sure.
It is. Nailed it. You're good. We're good.
We will hopefully return. So Christ's blessing to you.
Take care.